Another common problem is the appearance of distracting digital noise in images. Although digital camera technology has improved significantly in the past decade, digital noise is still very common with the less expensive point-and-shoot cameras and even with the highest quality camera when it's used in very low light situations, such as photographing at night or in a dark room. So let's take a look at this interior. We're going to open it in Camera Raw using Command-R on the Mac or Control-R on Windows. And I want to adjust a few things here. We're actually going to sneak over to the lens correction panel, but I just want to straighten the horizontals and verticals in this image. So I'm going to first select the Profile tab and enable the lens profile corrections. That's just going to remove any distortion from the lens. Then I'm going to scoot over to the Color tab and remove chromatic aberration, which again we'll talk about in another video. And finally, I'm going to go to the Manual tab, and in the upright area, we're going to click on this last icon in order to correct not only the vertical lines, but also the horizontal lines. All right, so with that taken care of, let's move back to the basic panel. And let's go ahead and start by clicking Auto and seeing what kind of an adjustment Camera Raw comes up with. Well, we can see all those red pixels. That's because I have my clipping warnings turned on. And if I don't want to see those, I could just tap the O key, but I'd actually rather see them so that I can fix them. So I'll tap the O key again to display them. And then I'm going to use my white slider and I'm going to move it to the left so that those pixels or those values are no longer clipped. All right, now I'll leave the rest of the settings here alone, and we're going to need to scoot over to the Detail panel because I'm seeing a lot of noise in this image and we want to reduce it. You can start reducing the noise here, but it's really better if you zoom in to 100%. So we can either use the option in the lower right-hand corner to quickly move to 100%, or we can use the keyboard shortcut Command-Option-0 or Control-Alt-0 on Windows. Then I'll hold down the space bar in order to pan down to the foreground of this image. So I know that you're going to be viewing this on a video that's been compressed, so I'm going to go ahead and make my changes a little bit more extreme just to make sure that you can see them. In the noise reduction area, I'm going to use the color slider and move it over to the right in order to get rid of all of that color noise. And if I tap the P key, we can toggle on a before or without the adjustment and an after. So you can really see how the color slider can help remove all of that kind of random color noise in there. Now, you can use the color slider rather liberally because it's only reducing the amount of color noise. It's not actually going to affect the detail in your image. So although I could move it way over to 77 or higher, there's no real reason to do that. So I'm just going to scoot it back so that I'm applying the minimum amount, yet I still want to make sure that I get rid of all the color noise. Then we'll start working with the luminance slider. This slider is a little bit more delicate because as we increase the noise reduction in the luminosity areas, you can see that I'm losing a lot of detail. The whole foreground area just looks really smooth right now. So let's back off on that. Of course, it's always going to be a trade-off, right? When you're removing noise, you're also going to be removing a little bit of detail. So you just have to find the balance. So let's go ahead and start with our luminance slider right around maybe 63. And then we can use the luminance detail and the luminance contrast sliders in order to help us, again, balance this removal of noise versus detail. So as I move the detail slider over to the left, I'm basically telling Camera Raw that I don't care as much about the detail areas. When I move over to the right, you can see that it's trying to actually maintain all of the detail in my image. So again, it's kind of a balancing act here. You need to move the slider in order to maintain as much detail as you need in those darker areas of your photograph. The luminance contrast can come in really handy when you do have large flat areas like maybe a wall or maybe the fabric on this sofa, because as I move the luminance contrast over to the right, you can see that it's kind of introducing the splotchy area. So obviously you don't want to use this if you're retouching faces, but if you have large areas of kind of solid color, moving the luminance contrast over to the right can help it look not as smooth and perhaps a little bit more natural. So that's probably too much. I can just back off a little. And then we'll tap the P key again to preview. There's before and there's after. Now, this is only previewing the luminance and the color noise reduction. If I want to preview everything that I've done to the image, then we need to scoot over to our presets. We'll tap the P key here, and we can see it before where we've got the dark image that is a little bit crooked, and we tap the P key again. Here we've gotten the straightened image that's a lot lighter and has a lot of the noise reduced. I think that's actually a little bit too strong for my personal taste, but I want to make sure that you can really see the difference while you're watching the video. I think a good rule of thumb is that visually, as long as the noise is not distractive, then your eye really isn't going to mind. So I tend to err a little bit on the conservative part. I'm okay with seeing a little bit of noise in my image, again, as long as it's not distracting to the eye. All right, when we click Done, return to Bridge, you can see that the preview's been updated.